with CoSA. Pleased to welcome you today on behalf of CoSA. Just a minute before we get officially started to remind you of the housekeeping items we've been discussing. Please, you see we're starting to have some folks issue some greetings and welcomes in our chat box on the right hand of the screen. We encourage you to do that. Put your name and your institution in and the names of anyone visiting with you there at your same location. Please use our chat box for questions or communications during the webinar. That allows everyone to see your question or comment, just kind of helps move it along. We'll be monitoring it, the chat box through the webinar, and we'll also, again, be using it when we get to that official question and comment period with our speaker. So at this point, being just at the top of the hour, we're going to start. I'm going to introduce our moderator for today's webinar. Today, we're happy to have Alan Ramsey with the Connecticut State Library, who is going to be moderating our webinar, which is the title of our webinar today is Mentoring Future Leaders. And I want to say hello to Alan, and once again, thank you for being here. And I'm going to let Becky turn over the controls to Alan, and he'll be able to get started with our opening slides.
Thank you, Mary Margaret. So we're going to start out today. Welcome, everyone. We're going to hear first presentations from CoSA-Ancestry Leadership Award winners, which were Zachary Jones, Archivist 2 at the Alaska State Archives, and Rahmaan, Archives and Program Analyst with the District of Columbia Office of Public Records. And then we're going to hear presentations from our Victoria Iron Walch Emerging Leaders Travel Stipend Award winners, Patsy Mitchell, Electronic Records Archivist with the Tennessee State Library and Archives, Cathy Popovitch, Records Archivist with the Illinois State Archives, and Megan Rohleder, Senior Archivist with the Kansas Historical Society. We will then have some time at the end for questions and discussion and any upcoming announcements. So I figured it's, sorry, I should have advanced the agenda. I apologize for that. Let me see if I can do that. There we go. So as I just talked about, that's our sort of our order for the day, and I'm going to now turn it over to Zachary Jones with the Alaska State Archives to talk about his award.
All right. Good morning or afternoon, everyone. It's great to be with you. My name is Zachary Jones. Of course, I work at the Alaska State Archives and also moonlight as an adjunct instructor at the local university here. It's my opportunity to speak with you briefly on a topic related to leadership, which I've entitled 3 Concerns for Leaders, Workplace Satisfaction Among Archivists and Where We Can Improve. So before I begin, I certainly want to express thanks to CoSA and Ancestry for their generous support in giving me this leadership award. I'm very grateful for it, and I think it's a great program. And also thank you to Mary, Rebecca, and Alan, and everyone for their work today. And also I'd like to acknowledge and thank Alaska's State Archivist, Karen Gray, for nominating and continuing to support me. As part of my leadership award, I was able to attend the MER or MER, the Managing Electronic Records Conference in Chicago. It's a great conference that approaches leadership and management as well as managing electronic records from a 30,000-foot view. So I would certainly recommend it to anyone interested in that aspect. A very great conference. So as part of my award, it's my opportunity and obligation to provide a short report to CoSA about what I learned at the MER and also things I've been thinking about regarding leadership from my time. I've been given 12 minutes. I've got your attention for 12 minutes, so I'm going to hit you with some information pretty quick. I'm going to talk about a report on a survey among archivists that I've been administering that looks at workplace satisfaction among archivists, and provide 3 concerns or things that leaders today should think about in our profession, and also provide some takeaways or ideas on how all of us can do better, whether leaders or future leaders. Now, the idea of surveying for workplace satisfaction, I was inspired recently. I attended a museum conference, and the museum keynote speaker at this conference was Marieke van Dam, who has been doing a similar thing, but been surveying folks in the museum profession about happiness on the job. Her findings and work is really honest and direct, and has really inspiring in a lot of ways, but sometimes asks some good hard questions. But I think understanding our challenges gives us a lead up on addressing them. I'd certainly also recommend and have reviewed CoSA's recent white paper, Attracting and Retaining Great Talent, which was released recently. I really recommend that to anyone, especially for leadership, but anyone involved. It's a really great report, and some of the findings in that mirror or are very close to the things I'm going to talk about today. So just very briefly, since my time is short, I want to just mention this survey I've been conducting. It's a national survey across the United States, and as of the 16th of this month, and the survey is still live, 145 people had taken it across the United States. Just so you kind of get a heads up on one demographic, about 45% of those who took the survey were in some type of a supervisory position. So I am going to hit you with some information pretty fast, and I mentioned the importance of if we understand our challenges, it gives us a head start on addressing them. Now, one question I asked, which I saw Marieke van Dam also ask about the museum profession, and this is the question here: have you seriously considered leaving the archival profession? I think that's a pretty strong statement. And those who took the survey, 44% said they have seriously considered leaving the archival profession. I think that's a pretty significant number, just about half. Even though at one survey question I asked said 63% of people like going to work today. And of course, many folks who work in the archival profession, it's something we really love and feel great about and are very committed to. But there are some things that I think as leaders or individuals we really need to look at. And I think this question, the response to this question is telling. So I promised 3 concerns for leaders. And I'm sharing information here that has come back from my survey about workplace satisfaction. These are just a few snippets, but I think important ones for leaders to consider. Or not only leaders, but I think anyone who works or may be a leader or just an employee. But the first concern I wanted to share is among those surveyed, 27% feel they are currently in a toxic work environment. That's nearly a third. I think that's a concerning factor that we need to address. 37% of folks, archivists surveyed, said they are satisfied with the level of communication at work. So the majority of folks are not quite satisfied with how communication happens at work. And the last one, which may not come as a surprise to some, but 48% of folks surveyed said they are not satisfied with their pay. This is something that CoSA's white paper and other has worked to address is pay in the profession. And I wanted to share one quote from someone surveyed. They said, "The failure to compensate archivists appropriately and with dignity and a sense of security is a moral and ethical failing we need to acknowledge and change." I think that's a pretty poignant statement. So of those surveys, I also asked, okay, if there are these problems, what is the respect level for leadership? And of those that took the question, 80% respect their supervisor. There still is a 20% contingent that did not answer if they respected their leadership. So that's another thing I think to think about. Now I just wanted to provide a couple quotes and I think some core feedback issues that were given with my survey about leadership. And this comes from the people surveyed, and I think a diverse array of folks in various levels of their career and in various positions. But one person said, and I think this is important, I strongly believe that supervisors and administrators control the institutional culture and happiness of the workplace. In my experience, a happy boss equals a happy work environment. And another person said, we need to advocate for supervisors to be trained in effective management techniques, as being a good archivist does not automatically make one a good manager. Having an incompetent manager can lead to intense unhappiness on the part of employees. So I've kind of put some heavy information out there, but I wanted to kind of turn it around now and offer some more positive things. Many of us really love our profession, and I think there are some good things, but it's important to acknowledge these challenges. So I wanted to provide some takeaways. This is my last slide, and I'm going to speak on it for just my remaining time. When I attended the MER, there was a lot of great leadership trainings. One image that folks had in their presentation was the image I've shared here about the difference between a boss and a leader, which I agree with and I think is something to consider. So from some of the feedback and things I've learned, I want to overview these takeaways. First, if you are currently in a leadership position or a supervisory position, are you mentoring or training for your replacement? Who are you preparing to be a future leader in your department? Those surveyed really called for that. Another one is that we need to send our staff and coworkers to leadership trainings. Very often we send folks to a great archival conference that's going to give them skills on electronic records or preservation or what have you, but we need to provide leadership training. That was a pretty strong call among all those surveyed. They said that needs to happen in our profession. And also, especially thinking about this graphic that I have on this slide, that we need to support our paraprofessional coworkers and provide them and give them we need to value them. There was a lot of feedback from some paraprofessional coworkers who said they don't quite feel as valued. And many of them do really hard work, a lot of heavy lifting, and sometimes the same work as their professional coworkers, but at a lower pay rate. So finding ways to provide more value and support to our paraprofessional coworkers is, I think, an important thing. Now, I'd certainly be the first to admit there's not an easy button for a lot of these. Sometimes it takes a lot of different approaches. But these are some concerns and feedback that I think we should consider. The next, I think, is one I really value is that whether you're a leader in a leadership position or just a coworker, we should compliment and praise our coworkers or your staff publicly in front of others. As I often say, nobody was ever hurt by a pat on the back. It really gives people a sense of value and a sense of accomplishment to be complimented and recognized publicly. I've often said that sometimes as institutions we may invest in our institutions and our collections and we're really focusing on them, and that's a great thing. But our institutions are run by staff, and if the morale level of our staff is high and folks feel well, their productivity is going to increase, which really strengthens the overall institution. So as if we invest in our staff, how they feel about their workplace, productivity is going to increase. I think that's a valid approach that we could consider. And as far as some of these trainings, especially at the MER, they had a great training on paying attention to generational differences. You know, how do Generation Z folks or Generation Y, deal with technology compared to baby boomers. These trainings can have value. It would be good for any of you to be informed of this. And another one that I think is really important is all of us, including our staff, need to learn about cultural sensitivity, what white privilege is, as well as what white fragility is. Our profession is, even the CoSA report has talked about this is an issue, and I think education about these aspects is one method of helping out. So, and the final one, maybe perhaps one of the biggest challenges, is we need to advocate for better pay for our employees and staff. That may be easier said than done, but if we want to retain good talent and have great people, we really need to find ways to do that. It's probably going to be different for each institution, but it's a valid pursuit. Our society is changing, cost of living is changing, and we need to find ways to keep pace with that and to retain great talent to serve those who work, to serve government and the public and really accomplish our mission. So in closing, I just really want to thank everyone for this opportunity for a brief moment to report about some things I've learned, recommend the MER conference, and again extend my thanks to CoSA and Ancestry for this award. And thank you all for your time and attention. Very grateful. And with that, I'm happy to pass the torch to the next presenter. Thank you.
Can everybody hear me okay? I heard 2 beeps.
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So the class that I was able to take, first of all, I do want to thank my administrator, Rebecca Katz, for recommending me for the award. And then I would also like to thank CoSA for the presentation as well. I had the opportunity to take a new manager's course. Just trying to get the slides here. Hold on 1 second, please. Okay. So the course that I took was, it was called the Manager's TOOLBOX Suite, and it was a 35-hour course. It had 7 modules, and basically the course was designed to give new managers an opportunity to begin to look at their roles differently than they do as employees, give you an opportunity to consider how you communicate with those that may work under you now, whereas they used to just work with you. And the part of the course that I really appreciated was that I've always been very much a team player. And in doing so, I guess I never really considered looking at things from the perspective of from the manager's viewpoint. And so a lot of the questions that you get in the introductory part of the courses will ask you questions like, what do you think your employees would need? And in answering them, my answers were just based on what my thoughts would be, without having any understanding really of what the manager's position would be in answering questions like that, because I got a lot of them wrong. But as you can see on the slides, the modules that were offered as part of the course included the business nuts and bolts, compliance challenges, handling conflict, morale and inspiration, challenges of new leaders, challenges of new managers, and performance challenges. And these were all of the topics had their own different set of questions and presentations that they were given. But the best part of the course had to be the scenarios that they would give you. So in the business nuts and bolts section, they would give you I was given 4 scenarios, and each one dealt with a different topic, but you were put in the position of the manager, and the scenarios were very real life. They would have people that work under you come in your office and talk to you about certain things. They would give you very practical scenarios that you had to address as the manager, and then in addressing each of the topics that they would give you, you would have to answer questions on how you would approach the situation. And they would give you the best practice or the best way to handle the situation. And then some of the answers, they would let you know that this was the worst way to handle it. And then in other cases, they would say, well, this was an okay way, but at the same time, there's these other mitigating circumstances that you didn't deal with as the manager. So in going through these particular 4 scenarios, the one that stood out the most probably was vendor relations, because in that particular scenario, we had 2 vendors who were providing the same, one vendor who was providing the service for us, but it had become too expensive, and then another vendor who could provide the same service to us at a lower cost, but in the end, getting it at a lower cost was not going to necessarily help our business, and then it also was causing some conflict amongst the employees going with the new vendor. So it was really interesting for me because a lot of these kind of situations, when they come up at work and you're dealing with them in your actual office, you're looking at it from just how it affects you personally and how you would handle it personally. But being a manager, being a leader, you have to really change your perspective on how everything affects the team, how it affects each individual in the team, knowing the people that you work with, their strengths and weaknesses, and then how it will affect the team as a collective. So this one, the business nuts and bolts one, that vendor relations scenario was the one that really stood out the most. With the compliance challenges, all of these had really, really good scenarios that were very challenging in terms of how to view them and to make sure that you approach them correctly as a manager. The harassment on the job, the sexual harassment, having an office romance, and putting your team together, all of these scenarios that they presented you with, they really made you think about how everything that goes on in the office affects everyone in the office. And again, it gave me a greater appreciation for the position that my supervisor is in and her supervisor is in, because it really takes you out of the position of only having to be concerned with the work and the situation that impact you directly. And you have to make very tough decisions. There are decisions that not everyone is going to like because it's impossible to please everyone, but you always have to be mindful of what's best for the office or the agency and what's best for the team. In handling conflict, this one was particularly insightful because it dealt with how you now manage people that you used to work with. So when you in a situation where you have your peers and then you're moved into a managerial position, they begin to look at you differently. And then there's also the pressure on you of not wanting to be seen as different than the people that you used to work with. You know that you're a manager, but at the same time, you know, you still want to be seen as one of the guys or one of the, you know, regular people that they can confide in and talk to, but, you know, they will see you different now that you're in a managerial position. And you have to deal with conflict amongst the people that used to be your peers, and you have to do it in a way that's fair, but understanding that they are now going to see you different. And then there's also another level of conflict where it's not between you and the people that you used to work with, but you and other managers, and how you manage that kind of conflict, regulating your own emotions, regulating how you behave and function in the office, because now people are watching you, and everything that you do, you know, is a reflection of your ability as a manager. So the handling conflict module was very insightful. The morale and inspiration module, this one dealt with things when people come to you, they want to talk to you in private, for example, with the salary anxiety and dealing with failure. Both of those lessons dealt with, an employee who comes to you in private and they want to talk to you about, whether it be their salary or, having tried out working on a new project and it failed, and you have to encourage them. You have to, be mindful of that you do represent the office, so you have to not necessarily let them get away with things that that are inappropriate, but at the same time, you have to find a balance between being there for your employees in a supportive and compassionate way, but also maintaining your role and responsibilities as a manager. The new leader challenges, I really enjoyed these scenarios because it very much speaks to the position that I'm in. And in being, a new manager or a new leader, it's really, the thing that they really try to reinforce is the changing the way that you think about things. That's like the most important concept that they try to drive home, is that you have to change the way you think about things. You have to change your perspective about work and how everything affects the people that work with you, the people that work under you, as well as the other managers that you work with, as well as the teams that you may be on. And that different perspective is not something that you can just jump into. It really takes time to develop that. And I felt that going through these scenarios and having the opportunity to practice gave me a much better outlook on what that different perspective is as a leader and as a manager. And the final module was the new manager challenges, which basically expanded on the new leader challenges. They gave it to you, and they just put it in a more direct perspective in terms of what's happening at work in the office. As you can see, you're dealing with someone's dress code, how to speak to someone about how they dress, a person who repeatedly comes to work late and how to handle that situation. The travel expenses scenario was about someone who was trying to claim expenses that the company would not pay for, and telework is that's where you have to decide whether or not a person's request to work at home is valid in comparison with someone who's already doing it, and them, feeling like, well, if one person does it, they all should be able to do it. So I by taking the course, I have a much better understanding of the responsibility that it takes to be a leader and a manager, and how you always have to maintain a larger view than just the stuff that affects you directly, like you do when you're just an employee. It's a lot of responsibility, but at the same time, I enjoy the challenge. I really do. And I enjoy working with people very much, and I also enjoy the opportunity to be of assistance. But when people come to you, as their manager, it just really makes it so that you have to play a serious game of balance between how you're dealing with people, again, that you used to work with, or people that are new, that you're new to. But it was a great course, and I really enjoyed taking it. It was very informative, and I really feel like it better prepared me for the role that I'm moving into at work. And so, again, I want to thank my administrator for recommending me for the award, and I want to thank CoSA for presenting the award, and I just really want to, share my gratitude for the opportunity to take this course and learn it. It really, really helped me out a lot. And with that, I will pass it to the next presenter as well. Thank you.
Hi, Patsy Mitchell here. I'm just going to keep advancing the slides if everyone's okay with that. So I thought that I would talk about the key lessons that I took from the joint meeting back in August. I attended the Great Ideas Exchange Day and the work session that were hosted by CoSA. And one of the things that really stood out to me was the importance of collegiality and collaboration. I think it's really easy to forget sometimes that we have this entire community of archivists who are dealing with the same problems that we're dealing with. I'm the only electronic records archivist at my institution, so I don't think that I could do my job if I couldn't lean on colleagues at other archives and reach out to them to see what kind of solutions they've come up with. So that definitely came up during the work session. So I think that what to do with that is to try and be more active in the larger community. One way is through attending conferences, but not everyone can do that, especially with travel budgets. So other ways are to participate in webinars. If you can try to serve on a committee. I'm the co-chair of the CIRI Advocacy and Outreach Subcommittee. And then also, if you have studies or policies that you've developed, any kind of documentation that you think could be helpful to the community at large, submit them to the Resource Center on CoSA's website. This is such a new field, and we're all learning together in a lot of ways. So I think that being able to lean on other people is really important. The other lesson that I took was the danger of perfection. I think that a lot of times we can get hung up on worrying about perfection and making sure that everything that you do is exactly right because you don't want to invest too much in a project that goes awry. But you can also spend too much time worrying about it and planning and never actually taking any action, which in the field of electronic records can be dangerous because you don't just want to leave those records unattended. So be willing to take some risks and not be afraid to fail, because that is how you learn and that's how you reach success. It's a good life advice too. And then the last lesson that I have here is the need for advocacy. I said that you should develop an elevator pitch, which I actually do not have yet. So that's on my list of things that I need to do. But we have so many different people that we have to try and get buy-in from, whether it's your admin or your IT, records creators, and part of it is getting support, funding, getting tech support, just trying to come up with a concise way to sell the idea to these stakeholders so that they can see the need for those resources and they're willing to provide that support to you. And that's all that I have, so I will pass it on to Cathy.
Hello. I'm trying to advance to the next slide, but it's not letting me.
I just moved it forward, Cathy, so go ahead.
I guess it's just not showing on mine. Okay. I only have one after this one.
Okay.
Okay. Well, hi, everyone. I'm Cathy Popovitch, and I work at the Illinois State Archives as supervisor of our operations section. First of all, thank you to CoSA for the chance to attend the annual meeting this year. It was a really beneficial for me in terms of networking and having the opportunity to meet face-to-face with some of the people that I've talked to and worked with as a member of the CoSA Education and Training Committee. Starting off the conference with the Great Ideas Exchange Day was a really good way to just dive right into everything. I found the discussions very informative, particularly in our small groups. And I learned a lot about how different states operate and their different mandates. And I also walked away with a lot of questions about how our institution operates and why we do the things the way we do. So that has really made me learn more about how we operate in other areas of the archives that I'm not directly involved in. And then, of course, the visit to the National Archives for the business meeting and awards dinner was incredible. That was my first time to the National Archives, so that was a pretty great way to see that for the first time. If you can move to the next slide. Thank you. So to the theme of the award in this webinar, I've been with the Illinois State Archives for a little over 4 years now. And this award and a chance to attend the CoSA meeting came at a really good time. I recently was promoted to supervise our operations unit, which is responsible for reference and inventory control. And I assumed that role in September. So going to CoSA in August was a really great way to pick up some ideas that I could introduce to the archives and really just take back all of that, positive conference energy, and it was a good way to jumpstart this new position. So knowing that I would be moving into a supervisory role, one of the sessions I decided to attend was called Leading the Way, Transparency and Archives Management. The session was aimed at archivists who may have formal education for being an archivist, but may have none or only minimal management training and experience, which was just right up my alley. The presenters represented a variety of institutions and varying levels of experience, and the session was kind of a Q&A style. And I really got a lot out of this session, so this is the one I want to talk about today. First thing that I took away from this is that management means clearly articulating expectations, and that it's usually better to over-communicate rather than to leave things to assumption. And I think Zachary shared some statistics on this, that I think it was 37% of the people who responded were unhappy with their level of communication. So that's obviously important. And being a good communicator is so important, being a good leader, and clearly defining what you expect from staff and what is not acceptable, I think really sets the tone for how you operate, and it just gets everyone on the same page. The conference theme this year was promoting transparency, so the speakers spoke to that on different occasions. And they encourage that when you can, be as transparent as possible. We're not robots, we're not mindless drones. I think we all like knowing why we're asked to do something and why it needs to be done a certain way. And obviously, as managers and leaders, we can't always share all of the information that we have, but when we can, we should provide as much as possible. And what I got from this is that by demystifying where you can, we can build trust and better communicate our vision for our institutions. And if we're open and honest and authentic, staff will take what we say at face value. Another important thing that I got from this session is to remember to draw on the experience, advice, and support of your peers. One of the questions given to the presenters is, how can we advocate for our team when the higher-ups just don't want to hear it, or they don't see the value in our work. And the presenter suggested that if you can't go up, go out. Partner with other managers. We like to work with our state library a lot. They're our sister agency under the Secretary of State, and that's just another way that we can demonstrate the value of our work. one of the comforting takeaways is that most of our decisions are not life-threatening, even though it may feel like it sometimes. So we just need to make thoughtful decisions and then, you know, be confident and brave about those decisions. And then finally, and I think most relevant to this webinar, is that we should never lose sight of the fact that we are only temporary custodians and that we need to raise the next generation of custodians. So, you know, promoting professional development and leadership training through awards programs like the CoSA Awards is one way to do that. And I think individually, it's really important, you know, I guess in whatever level you are, to mentor others, whether informally or through formal mentorship programs, because it's really essential that our work carries on beyond our time at our institutions. And that's all I have, so I will pass this along to Megan.
There we go. Can you hear me? Are we good?
Yep, we can hear you.
All right. And I don't think I have the controls either.
If you put your cursor on the screen, I think you'll see some controls appear on the left-hand side. Can you see that?
They are, but it's just zoom in and the clock. There's no advanced controls. And I can't do it with the keys either.
Okay. Well, wait a minute.
Okay,
We're going the
no
wrong
problem.
way. Okay, good, Becky. I'll let you do it.
Cool, perfect. I just have a few, so I'll just let you know when to change them. Hi, everybody. I am Megan Rohleder. I am the Senior Archivist of Public Services for the Kansas Historical Society. If you want to go to the first slide. Just a couple things. I think you're probably not going to hear anything that you already haven't heard, but just some comments on the CoSA Great Ideas Exchange Day. I think that's the key takeaway for me from the conference. I think that this was such a great opportunity for me. I was able to put faces to names that I've been hearing for 2 years, but never really had a chance to really interact with on a personal level. So that was a really, really great day for me. Kind of more in the weeds kind of stuff. We were given the opportunity to listen to some really in-depth case studies about things that are really timely for us out here at the archives. The first one that really struck a nerve with me was the North Carolina functional scheduling discussion. She did a really great job of providing some detail on the practical implementation of their functional scheduling and really how they went through that process, how they made some key decisions, you know, how they got stakeholders on board. And those were all things that I think we're struggling with a little bit out here at the archives. And so I was able to take some things back with me and really start developing a plan to, we may not be able to go to an entire, to a similar plan, but we can simplify our retention schedules quite a bit, I think. So that was really, really beneficial to me and to our staff, I think. Another thing that stood out to me was listening to Chris Stinson talk about the Oregon's electronic records management system that they basically built and they facilitate for the state. It provided a great context for me in which to think a little bit more out of the box. We often, I don't want to say we fail, but we think about records management in a little bit different approach. And so seeing them be so hands-on with each individual agency that they work with in that records management cycle was really important for me to be able to think outside of the box for decisions that we're making. We're in the process of doing an overhaul on our electronic records management systems, our digital archives. And so having that conversation and listening to that presentation really framed it in a new way for me, and I was able to think about some different systems that I may not have even considered before. So that was really great as well. One of the other things from the Great Ideas Exchange Day that I got really personally excited about, and I think I think Matt is too, he's laughing at me right next to me, is that NAGARA was talking about their traveling exhibition for the celebration of the 19th Amendment being ratified. That's happening next year. And in Kansas, the suffragette, the movement was just so huge for the state. And so we're in some talks and some initial planning to be able to do something special, I think, out here for that as well. So, these are really tangible, amazing things that I was able to take away from a day that I would not have had the opportunity to be at had it not been for this award. So if you can go to the next slide, please. Maybe. Kind of on a more broad and philosophical level, I am an early career archivist. I am within my just outside of my first 2 years now. But this opportunity really did come at a perfect time for me. It was really serendipitous in the timing. I recently, just like Cathy, which weird Cathy, we're like on the same timeline here, took on more of a management role. So I've been, most of the conversations I had at CoSA were framed with that in mind. I was able to connect with people and have great conversations with people who seemed to really genuinely care and really genuinely wanted to help, which was crucial and really inspiring, I think, and something that, again, would not have happened had I not had this opportunity. I think it goes without saying that the sessions that were offered, I learned a lot there. And obviously, I don't think we can overlook the fact that, if you want to go to the next slide, that the dinner at the National Archives was pretty amazing. I may have peaked, actually, in my career. I don't know if it gets much better than having dinner in front of the Constitution. So, again, thank you for the award. Thank you for the opportunity. And with that, I think we're passing back to Alan for Q&A.
Yes, so I want to thank all of our presenters today for presenting, and if you have any questions or comments, you can use the chat box on the right. I noticed throughout a lot of the presenters that we talked quite a bit about communication, and so I just was wondering if they had any tips or additional thoughts about communication to sort of get us started, because it seems like it's very crucial, and 37% was a little surprising. Maybe not surprising, but a little surprising. So I was just wondering if any of the presenters could just chime in a little bit about what they think about communication and maybe improving or ways they've helped to improve it in their own institutions.
Am I unmuted?
Yes.
Yes, Cathy,
Yeah.
I can hear you, yes.
Okay, great. Well, I'll just jump in. I think I know I am not the most articulate person, and sometimes I have to reword and think through what I'm going to, how I want to articulate something to my team. But I think the most important thing that you can do is to just let them know that you are open to communicate. And that was one of the first things I did when I took on this new role, is I got everyone together and I just said, I know I'm new. I know you're going to teach me a lot, and hopefully I can teach you a lot, but just know that, I always have an open door, and I'll always listen to what you say. I might not always agree, but I think just being open is a big part of communicating.
I guess the other thing I noticed too is a lot of you were in fairly new roles or changing roles. So how is, maybe, sort of found most challenging or I kind of want to leave it open, so challenging or rewarding as changing those roles, and just kind of throw that ideas out there. If you have ideas about communication as well, just sort of throwing some ideas out to keep our discussion going.
I guess I can talk a little bit about all of those things. So we at the Historical Society out here in Kansas, we are going through some pretty major staff turnover, and it's just all because of retirements at this point. People have been here for so long that we're starting to lose and then refill these pretty crucial positions. And for me, that's both a challenge and very exciting, because not only are we losing such invaluable agency knowledge, but we're also given the opportunity to really take the archives in a new direction, I guess. Not that wasn't an opportunity before, but when somebody's been in a position long enough, that's the way it's done. And so we've recently gone through a bit of a restructuring out here. I think there's a renewed sense of commitment to the job from everywhere. I think that people are more willing to communicate their concerns and more willing to communicate their ideas, and excitement about all of that too. So that's something that I've found, and I realize I'm pretty lucky in that sense, that it hasn't been a source of anxiety for most people out here, that I get a bigger sense that it's really, really exciting. It's a really exciting time for us. But that really does come from the fact that we've let that be a conversation. It's not dictated from the top down. It's something where we've all been able to participate in that.
Great. Thank you for that. Adding to this, Barbara had a question. Do you do something similar to the Great Ideas Exchange in your archives when you come home from conferences? Do you share what you've learned, and do you present regularly to each other on various topics? Feel free to any of you to jump in and respond.
Hi, this is Ali at the Office of Public Records in Washington, D.C. Real quick though, going back to the communication aspect, we have a very small staff here, so communication is like super duper huge with such a small amount of people. Too often, when communication isn't at the level it is, people tend to isolate themselves in whatever part of the building that they work. And although, people continue to work and get things done, we lose some of our team chemistry and cohesion. And so, I constantly am trying to encourage open communication on a regular basis. And it really helps when people, sometimes, rather than send an email, you pop your head in somebody's office to speak to them. Little things like that can make a big difference. And then in regards to reporting back, we have monthly staff meetings. So during the course of that month, if anyone goes to any trainings or any presentation or anything of that nature, we're always given the opportunity to share with people, what we experienced, just to pass it on. So people are not only aware of what we're doing, but if there's anything in it that they can use or the resources they want to have access to, we can share that with them as well.
This is Zach. I might share maybe a little experience that I think is maybe a good teaching tool. We certainly, do share what we've learned at conferences with each other. We have great staff meetings, and we do have a good communication thing going on here, at least I'd say. So really pleased with our great staff here. But one thing, in my presentation I talked about is communication and mentoring. In Alaska, we had kind of an interesting situation. We had our state archivist retire amid amid a statewide budgetary issue, and there was a hiring freeze. And the state archivist position was left vacant for a little more than a year and a half. And so what our administration did and could do to deal with it was they appointed, they couldn't, the way it worked here with our union, they couldn't just appoint one person to handle the situation for that year and a half. They had to do a rotation system. So they picked 3 members of our administrative staff, our professional staff, and on rotation for a year and a half, each of us would spend 2 months being state archivist. The 3 of us, we coined it the term, we were the troika. That is a Russian sleigh that's pulled by 3 horses. And so the 3 of us often pulled together as a team. And it was actually a real great training and mentoring opportunity. The 3 of us would get together, oftentimes regardless of who was wearing the hat that month, and we would put our minds together and talk about the issues, the challenges, what we could do. It was a real great training and mentoring opportunity for all of us. I learned a lot from my great coworkers. And anytime there were difficult or complicated decisions, especially during a budgetary crisis issue with the state, having 3 minds together to address these problems was a real good method, really a great opportunity in learning. So I think, if you are a leader or something like that, involve your professional staff. Help mentor, help train them. This gives them the opportunity to learn and think and see things from your perspective. And oftentimes, boy, it sure doesn't hurt to have good feedback from another professional colleague.
Okay, Alan, this is Mary Margaret. Unless we have any other questions or comments to wrap it up, we're going to go to our announcements. Anybody else have anything they'd like to share before we move on? Okay, well, not hearing any, I'm going to move on here. Just again, want to thank really a great slate of presenters, and also want to thank Alan for doing a great job of moderating this program. We really are glad everyone was able to join us today. Today is the last monthly member webinar for 2018, but that doesn't mean it's the end of webinars for 2018. We're glad to announce planning is proceeding for the next joint webinar with National Archives, which we have now scheduled for Tuesday, December 11th, 2 p.m. Eastern. This is following up on the records management and scheduling discussion at the annual meeting, and we will have presenters from National Archives staff and the State Archives of North Carolina staff. So stay tuned for that. You will see announcements for that, and I think that will be a really good webinar. We are beginning work on planning for the 2019 member webinar. Stay tuned for that. The topic is going to be emergency preparedness and response, and we'll have more on that hopefully very soon. And we recently had a Shop Talk webinar, and we have another one coming up. Our major sponsors, we are very appreciative of our major sponsors for CoSA. Last fall, we offered a Shop Talk with Family Search. We've had 2 others this fall. On September 13th, we had Ancestry. October 16th, we had Preservica. And coming up, our last of our major sponsors, Apex Software, November 15th. So put that on your calendar, and you will be getting an announcement about that soon. So look forward to that. And as we're talking about sponsors, we just really, again, 2018 sponsors and funders, thank you. We've had many webinars this year, and we couldn't do it without them. So we want to thank Ancestry, Family Search, Apex Software, Preservica, LibNova, Gaylord Archival, Space Saver, and our federal funders, the National Historical Publications and Records Commission, NHPRC, and the Institute of Museum and Library Services, IMLS. So those are our major sponsors here. So now we are going to move forward to the next slide. And get that to come up. Stay connected and informed. I'd like to remind everyone of the ways to stay communicating with CoSA. Our CoSA website, statearchivist.org, has lots of information, and we also like to focus on the Resource Center, which is available there at statearchivist.org. We also communicate through social media, State Archivist, and also down Twitter, and the Facebook page, the Council of State Archivists. Can people hear me? I'm getting a message here. I am speaking, and I'm unmuted, I think.
I can hear you.
Okay. Okay, we're getting some that we can hear you. I think we're having some audio problems, but at least some of you can hear me. So that's good, because I want to share this information, and I'd like you all to be able to hear. So we're going to move forward to our last slide. Just a reminder, we do appreciate your feedback. As I was just talking about, we're in the process of planning the 2019 webinars. So your feedback on that evaluation that you get as you depart is very helpful to us. You will be taken automatically to an online webinar evaluation. Please take just a couple of minutes to complete that survey and help us for our future. So once again, I want to say thank you to Alan and to all our award winners. I certainly understand why you were the winners. You did a great job today. And we will say farewell for this afternoon, and then we'll ask everyone to join us on November 15th for the Shop Talk webinar, which will be our next, with Apex Software, which will be our next webinar. Thanks, and have a great day.